Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Think About It. My name is Franklin Katunda right here in the Biso Production Studio in Euless, Texas. You know where to find us. We're on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok. You can go ahead and just subscribe to all these platforms to be always abreast of what we're doing around here. Again, remember, it is a TV or proximity. Everything that's happening around in the community, we try to address it. And also we have, podcasts, we have shows, talk shows where we put our people together and ask questions about things that matter. Today, I'm here in the studio for our second episode with Yves Mukanya, who is the mental health therapist who came in here in Dallas from Rhode Island, from Providence, Rhode Island to be precise. Ladies and gentlemen, discover him again. For those who didn't see him, he's up here in the studio. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me again.
All right, very good. Well, it's our pleasure to have you a second time here. How do you cope with Texas, by the way? Because yesterday there was a big storm and we had a bad tornado. Did you just experience it for the first time?
No, I did not. Luckily, I was out of Texas before that. So,
so you landed after the tornado?
After the tornado, so I was okay with that.
Lucky guy. So today we're going to talk about mental health, of course, but we want to just concise it in a workplace.
Okay.
We're trying actually to have a feeling of how people can deal with those problems or develop those symptoms at the workplace and the implications of what it can be in their life.
Well, when you talk about job place, I'll look at job satisfaction and things like that. So there's a lot of things that that can happen, right? People usually, it happened to a lot of people that do not know how to handle their feelings. Yeah. So the reason why I'm saying this is because let's take an example of someone who has been working for a company for a certain amount of time. You work for this company, you give your time, you give your energy, and you even work your way to making relationships with the higher ups. But when it comes time for promotion, you get slighted and then you give it to someone else. When you are positioning yourself for that position, it's bound to create some feelings into you. It's bound to make you angry, and which is totally normal. However, when it becomes a problem is when the person doesn't know how to deal with those problems properly.
Yes.
And if you don't deal with it properly, that start affecting the work. That start affect your relationship that you created. Yes. So from the way we can explain it, from the approach that I use in therapy, like I believe we talked about feelings, thoughts, and action being all interrelated, right? So if you have a negative thoughts that influence your feelings, that create the negative feelings, and that negative feelings is going to create a negative action because you feel it a certain way. The action are going to match the feeling that you have towards
your actions. It's not anybody else.
No, it's your own. I'm talking about your own mentally inside of you.
Okay.
Right. So if you have a negative thought that creates negative feelings, and that negative feelings are going to influence your action, and you're going to have pretty much actions related to the way you feel.
Yeah.
And because of that, your action are going to feed back again into your thought. So you kind of caught in that negative loop. So when you're in that kind of negative loop, you're looking at things very negatively, you acting very aggressive and negative towards other people. That affects your job, right? Like, because you're so negative, people tend to not want to come to you. People tend to not want to even coach you. You go from the person that people used to like to the person that people are trying to avoid. Why? Because you had that feeling just because you were slighted one time and you were angry. You haven't dealt with those feelings properly. You let them fester. That influence your feelings, that influence your thoughts, and that influence your action. So going from you can go from a person who's totally positive to totally negative. And people are only going to see it from your behavioral point of view. It's like, oh, he used to be nice, but now he's so mean. What happened?
Wow.
So you have to explain that, just that one event, because you don't know how to handle your feeling properly. That one event can have a catastrophe, a very negative impact into your job and into the way you do things.
Now, let me ask you this. Of course, that behavior is sometimes influenced by the way people are coping with their own personal lives. You know, maybe relationship in the marriage, or maybe wife just came back from work from maternity back to work, and all that. So, how do you do to prevent your own, if I can use the term, personal baggage to be involved in human resource activities at work?
Oh, you mean your
own problem?
Oh, your own problem from home?
Yeah.
To avoid carrying it
mingling and just
work.
Because I believe that's what creates all that mayhem.
Well, the situation at home definitely has an influence into how you're gonna present yourself when you're outside in society.
Yeah.
Right. So understand. You have to understand your own feelings, and my belief is it always come down to knowing yourself.
Yeah.
The better you know yourself, the easier it is for you to deal with those feelings. The easier it is for you to handle those feelings when they come. Right. So you have this person who might have a marital problem at home because he knows himself, he knows his spouse, and that influence might be negative, but because he knows how to handle his own feelings, it might not allow them to carry to his job. It definitely does. That's why handling those problems as soon as possible or as they come is always the best way to go. So for people in relationship or married and things, it's always good to have an open communication about certain feelings. Right? Okay, I'm open. Like we did this, or you said this, or something happened yesterday, and that created that feeling into me. So, what can we do to fix that? Okay. So in couples that have an open relationship, and also in couples that make an effort to create a space where each partner is willing to come and open up and be safe about talking about how we feel internally. That create a better environment for someone to help him not carry certain things into his job, or let his job also influence his life at home. So knowing how to balance those things can help in the long run. It can be for a man, it can also be for a woman. It works both ways.
Well, that leads me to this question about how do you manage to be you in a workplace versus how do you manage to be you in your family or your marriage? Because quite often we see doctors or people who are in type of a profession like a liberal arts profession, they bring the same behavior from workplace to their home. The way they treat their secretary is the way they treat their wife. Okay. How do you explain that, and how do you address it if it comes to you?
Well, for me as a third, when even I see couples, right? Yeah. And if I hear one of the spouse say, hey, he or she treat me as if I was the secretary, or he or she treat me as if I was...
Can you give an example of how a wife can feel like you are treating her as a secretary?
Well, like if you expect way too much of things, like the way you treat your secretary, hey, I need this paper, I need to be done with the demand of how...
By 2 p.m. this afternoon?
No. Sometimes it's not 2 p.m. Sometimes I have this paper, I need to copy and send, I need it yesterday. So it's always like that. And you see that, it's a word, like I need them yesterday, which means that it's as soon as possible. So it's already late, right? So you put the pressure on your secretary. But some people do not know to turn that switch off when they come home.
When they get home.
Yes.
Talk the same language, the verbiage that the wife doesn't understand.
Exactly. They don't understand that. So for me, when someone like that shows up, or something like that shows up, and I listen to that, I always refer to the mask. I think it's Carl Jung who likes to talk about personality and things like that, and also the mask that we wear, because the mask that we wear.
You say the mask.
We wear a mask.
Okay.
And they are necessary for us to behave in society, right? I'll give you an example. You're married, right? And you also work as a journalist, and you also work for the airline company. So the way you interact with the people in your airline job or airline company is not going to be the same way that you interact with people as a journalist.
As a public speaker.
Exactly. It's also not going to be the same way that you interact with your wife and your children.
That's right.
So in order for you to adapt to those situations, you wear a different mask. Those masks help you deal with whatever situation that you're in.
Gotcha.
So now the problem comes where? When the person doesn't know or is not comfortable taking off that mask. Right? People get attached to the mask that bring them the most success, and they believe that that's the mask that they have to wear the whole time. So when someone tells me he or a partner say that he treat me or she treat me like the secretary, to me that's a sign that, hey, you know what, this person might not feel comfortable taking off that mask, because behind the mask, that's the true self. Okay. Right? And then you hiding your true self or your true personality behind that mask. What your partner is really saying is, this person in front of me, I do not know him. I do not know her. He's not opening up to me. I want to see the person behind the mask. Who is that person? Because that's the person in your couple that you have to show to each other. You have to feel safe showing to each other. So if you don't do that, and you don't feel comfortable taking out that mask, to me, it's a problem. So there must have been something, either self-esteem issues or trauma issue, that forced you to wear that mask. But because you're feeling success, that mask brought you success in an area of your life, you get attached to that mask. Right? And then you hide the lack of self-esteem or that trauma behind the success and things like that come with the mask that you are wearing. But a lot of people don't understand that those masks at some point need to be taken off.
I'm going to go a little extreme on that. Some of the masks that a pastor, because he's doing a profession, he's out there, taking care of the flock, and he's actually out there teaching, preaching, and organizing a whole organization that is there with a structure, and he is almost like a CEO or a chief operating officer. He's got a mask. And sometimes I believe some of the preachers or some of the ministers, when they get back home, they don't take off that mask, and they talk to their wives the same way they do with the members in the church. And so that can also create just the same problem you were talking about.
That can also create tension in your house, in your couple, between you and your partner, or between you and your wife. Or it can also create those tension, because the real goal of a relationship, or I'll say a marriage, if you talk about marriage, it's to create a safe place where both, as I said earlier, feel comfortable taking off that mask, taking off that armor, and showing their true self to their partner.
So the pastor need to be able to speak to his wife romantically, and not use too many idioms that actually are related to spirituality, to just say a simple thing as, okay, I'm going to give you a flower because I love you, or, why don't you just come and sit on my lap and so we can talk, and things like that.
But yeah, so, I mean, it's also understanding, because you can't put every couple into the same basket, right? Everybody has his own way to make things work. Every marriage is different, right? Maybe for one pastor, he knows, after knowing his wife, he knows that talking spiritual or being spiritual like that satisfy his wife. It's understanding what your partner, your wife needs.
Okay.
Or what your husband also needs. So if you get to a level where you have an open communication and you know what your husband or your wife needs, you're able to cater to those needs whenever you are in the space where you are together. Right? So, okay, my partner or my wife need this. My husband need this from me. Okay, when we're together, this is what happened. And you create that space so that whenever every partner, come back home or come back to, they find whatever they need from you.
It's funny you say that because I can actually be reminiscent of pilots when they do their job. We call them, they are captain in command. They're the number one carrying. In the language of the airlines, they call them carrying souls. If the aircraft has 350 seats, that means he's carrying 350 souls. He is the number one in the air. Not even the president of the United States or a president of any country. He's the one who's actually leading everybody on that spacecraft from A to Z point. So he knows, he decides everything. So that's a guy who love to command, love to control, love to tell people things they need to know about what's around us. Or now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going through turbulence. We're about to land in Nebraska because it's going to be an emergency landing. We cannot get to Texas. So all of you just be quiet, be just fine. We're going to get there. So he's using his authority. I can imagine a pilot like that in his house with his wife or kids. If he's using that same language, they're lost. They don't know what's going on.
They are lost. So yes, it's difficult. It's going to be very difficult to be or to lead your home in that kind of manner, because if you carry your personality, as I say, the mask of the pilot, the captain, you bring it at home. At home, you're not the captain.
Is that necessarily because there is a problem that he's carrying that mask, or it's just because he just can't help himself? That's how he is. I mean, the profession kind of shaped his behavior to act certain ways and speak certain ways.
Okay. Well, I can also tell you certain things. I'm just going to take my example, all right? I worked in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
And my belief was, I'm a scientist, this is the things that I do, and that shaped my personality around that. However, there's also another side of me that also need to be expressed. And that's being a therapist, because I also like that one-on-one connection. I like to listen to people, and I like to bring people like that. Right? That's another part of me that also is being expressed.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
So I go from a scientist to an expression. Right? So those are different masks. Just because you have molded your behavior according to a certain profession, that doesn't mean that you can mold your own behavior according to something else. Because as you say, there's one person behind those masks, and those masks that we wear help us function in society. So if you're a captain, you're wearing the mask of a captain and you're successful in it, that's fine. But when you're home, they don't need the captain.
Get rid of it.
They need the husband. They need the father. And they also, and your wife also need the friend. Right? So at some point, like the husband, but you become the friend. So you have to be able to mold to those things. The problem comes when someone is unable or is unwilling to let go of a specific mask. Once you understand that taking it off, the mask is there to wear, but at some point you have to take it off.
Let me bring the mask on the pre-marriage. When people are just dating, they meet their fiancés, maybe they're not yet, but they're just trying to get to know each other. Is that recommended for them to use also that tactics of using different masks? And if they do, isn't it a risk for them to actually show up there with a mask that is not the true self. And so the wife or the fiance will discover somebody else later on.
Yes. Okay. You run the risk of that.
Yeah.
However, as I always say, you have to have a certain level of self-awareness. Right? Self-awareness, to me, you approach this, the ideal way to approach dating is, first of all, understanding yourself.
Yeah.
You understand who you are. That's the first step. And then after, according to who you are, your personality, you understand what kind of person you can better match with. Right?
Okay.
So if you understand what kind of person you better match with, you also have to understand your values. Yeah. Those are the things that I'm willing to accept. Those are the things that I'm willing to work with. And those are the things that I am completely against. It's a no for me.
Okay, so you put everything on the table, say, okay, you want a relationship with me, I want a relationship with you, but let's make a deal. These are our standards.
Well, it's good to talk about those standards because you approach it from a self-awareness, someone who's self-aware. Yeah. You understand what it is that you need, and you understand what it is that you want. You understand your values, and you're better able to communicate them to the person in front of you.
So wait a minute. You're talking about your values, your understanding, your. What about the other person? So you don't care about that, huh?
No, it's not about that. It's not about caring about them. The person that you're gonna have in front of you has basically, this is it. Before you even get the person in front of you, you have to understand who you are first.
Oh, I understand. Okay,
right? Good. It's all about understanding who you are.
Yeah.
Because if I understand who I am, I understand my values, I understand what it is that I want, what it is that I don't want, what it is that I can work with. So I
define that everything based on who I am.
Who I am. So when you face a potential partner or someone that you're interested in, and you have a conversation, now you compare the value. That's why having deep conversation about the values and comparing it and understanding if they match. Because you know yourself, and when you talk to the other person, you understand where they are. You understand if their value do match with yours. If they do not match with yours, then that's probably not the person for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a fair conversation here. And you know what? It's the most ignored in our society. A lot of people actually engage into relationships, be it just boyfriend, girlfriends, or a fiance. And then even sometimes people just live together and they'll neglect to go through the standards. They refuse to define themselves first and establish their standards before meeting the other person. And so they go into, if I can call it this way, a table of negotiation with no standards, no parameters, and they just get up there and try a relationship. It's as if they're just going in without any notions, no considerations about themselves, and they just try to give something a chance and get into a relationship. And personally, I don't believe in that type of way of doing things, because I think if you want to love the other person, you have to love yourself first. And if you have to love yourself, I believe you have to take care of yourself. I don't know if that's close to what my guest is saying tonight, but I'm just trying actually to raise your awareness. If you have questions, here's what we're gonna do. You can send them to our network, and you can also go on Instagram, where you can contact this therapist directly. It is your_neighborhood_therapist. Is on Instagram, your_neighborhood_therapist. And so if you have questions, send them out to our email address. We are on Biso Production. You're going to see us online on www.bisoproduction.com, where you can send an email, and we will forward those questions to our guest who's with us tonight. Again, we have Yves Mukanya coming from Rhode Island, from Providence, Rhode Island tonight. He's discussing very important subjects with us tonight. We just touched a little bit on the workplace. We talked about the relationship between the workplace and the marriage. Now we're going to touch one of the very, very important subjects that a lot of people avoid is the therapy. And is it the need of going for therapy or just going to a pastor for prayer? So religion versus therapy. Are you ready for that? I'm kind of like
you're putting me
exposing
in a very bad spot right now. But
let's talk about it. What's the difference between when a pastor have to lay hands on somebody because he feels like he's being possessed by demonic attacks versus a therapist? We need to stay with that same person and tell him your behavior is stinky and you're not really respecting your wife, and that's why you're falling apart.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why people are falling apart, right? And to be honest, I have no problem with people's religious belief. Like, it's actually it's recommended to have a relationship with a higher power, right? You can have God.
Your God.
You can be
a creator.
A creator, basically. Yes. So if you have that kind of relationship, it's perfectly fine. But you have to understand that the person is not just a spiritual being. There's also the other part of the person, that more humanistic kind of side. So that human side is worried about, has a social life, has other than social, you have the religious part, you have the social, you have the financial, you have the workplace. All those things react with each other to make the person, to create a certain level of happiness or satisfaction of life around this individual. Because we are not just spiritual. Of course, we are spiritual, but we are not just that. Our life on earth requires us to also look at our relationship with our friends, our finances, our jobs, and all that stuff. So I have no problem with someone having his own religious belief. And when you come to me, the first question that I'll ask you, what do you believe in? You can be an atheist. If that's what you believe, that's what you believe. I'm not here to change that. I'm not here to
him into a religion.
That is not what I do.
Therapist. Yes. Of course, you are certified. And as a science, you have to go by the protocol.
I have to hold by a certain protocol. So I can't tell you what it is that you do. And even my own approach, a personal approach, I'm not a hands-on person to tell you what to do. That's not my job. Right? My job is to help you to get us over the hump, or deal with, gives you the tool to deal with certain difficulty in your life. That's my job. But coming as where I have a problem sometimes with hearing, and that might be very controversial, and especially from where we're from, our African culture, because we are extremely religious. Right. So you hear a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, like, why do you go to a therapist? He has his own problem.
Just pray.
Just pray about it." Of course, praying about it is a good thing, right? It's a perfect thing. However, the other side of you, the more human part of you, also need help. And what the pastor does is providing help on the spiritual side. But what about the human side?
Human side,
And that's also my belief. I don't know about other people. My belief is, if God did not want to create a doctor or a therapist
or science in
general, he wouldn't have done that. Like, he created the world, and he created the things inside the world so that when you interact with this environment that we're in, you have everything that you need to support you. You sick, you have a doctor. Right? You have some mental problem, you have a therapist to talk to. Right? You feel lonely, you have a wife to be with you. Right? So God has created all those things around it. So he knew that the people that I'm putting onto this earth have to go through certain things, certain challenges. So I'm creating those things, and I'm giving certain people the intelligence to learn those things. That's why he created priests. That's why he created, he gave the intelligence to people to become, I don't know, carpenters and all that stuff, different area of life, so that it basically to cover the needs of the human being. Yeah. And that's the same thing, to me, the way I understand, that's the same thing as between religion and therapy. Religion serve the spiritual side.
The spiritual side of a human.
But it also is the human part, which is, you know, the social and all that stuff, as we said. Okay. All right. The biggest problem in our religion, and especially the African, we are waiting for a miracle. All right. Yeah. And I have nothing against miracle. Like we see a miracle every day. All right. I see a miracle every day that I wake up, because I didn't have a lot of people didn't have the chance to do it.
So it's not a problem if a therapist is also a religious man.
It's not a problem. The problem becomes when I try to influence you with my religious belief.
Okay, so there you go. So a Christian therapist can take care of a patient who is Muslim.
I talk to different things.
Although there's a difference between
like I have
their philosophies.
Yeah, I have someone, I talk to, some of my patients is Buddhist. I had someone who was doing voodoo, and this different people, atheists. It's not the big thing. The big thing is really what is bothering you, right?
To care about that person.
That's exactly. I'm looking at the person as a whole, and trying to answer the problem. Okay, why are you here? If you're in front of me, then there's a problem. There's something that's bothering you. So let's figure it out. My religious belief has nothing to do with you. But if your religious belief help you become stronger and get over that hump, I'm gonna strengthen
and work with you.
Exactly. That's what I'm gonna strengthen, because if that's very important to you and that's helped you along the way, let's focus on that, make it stronger, so that it's one leg that you can step on. And then look at the other side of your life as well, whether it's your social, whether it's your job satisfaction or the other side, and then work to make sure that all those parts are stronger, so that it feeds back into you and become a more positive and happy person.
Ladies and gentlemen, I like this conversation very well. And you know what? Shout out to some of the ministers out there, you know, that I've met, I've interviewed in the my course of my profession, and where they told me they do not have any problem with having their church members go to therapists. And I want to salute here Pastor Jean-Claude Mulumba, who actually told me one day that, you know what, it wasn't a problem. I can actually refer my church members to a therapist when it's warranted, because there are cases where people have past abuse. People have a problem with their identity, sexual identity or sexual orientation, due to things that happened to them when they were little kids. So there are a lot of ministers out there who know what to do. Sometimes they will pray for them, they will counsel them, but they won't neglect to send them to therapists, because there will be a lot of work in progress to do. Dr. Patricia Muzingo does also the same thing. She believes in a science where sometimes you have to make a very distinct acknowledgement about the science and then also the spirituality in order to help people, because it's made to help the human being. It's science, it's medicine, and it's mental health, and it helps people to move forward. So that subject about sexual orientation, I know a lot of people don't like to talk about it. Even churches, they just sit there quiet and look at it. When you have a patient brought to you, and obviously you're looking, it's a male genre, I want to say male gender, and they tell you they are female. How do you deal with that?
To be honest, ethically, I cannot pass any kind of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It's on my code of ethics. And even my approach.
It's your code of ethics.
My code of ethics doesn't.
As far as the therapist.
Yeah, as a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
according to my code of ethics, I cannot pass any judgment on anybody's sexual orientation.
Okay.
I'm not looking at that as a negative or things. No. If that's something that poses you a problem, then we can talk about it. But I do not put judgment according to that.
When you say if that's it's something that poses a problem, let's say if the person is not happy about the way they feel, they feel something that is opposite to what they know normally in a society, and they're upset about it, they're crying about it, and they're doing crazy stuff about it. I'm talking about those type of people.
Well, then we have to go back and figure out what is at the basis of all those behaviors, because then again, I cannot judge someone and I cannot turn someone away because of his sexual orientation. That is not ethical. And even from my personal approach, the approach that I use is person-centered. I do not look at the person just by one thing that he's doing. I'm looking at the whole person. What is this person? What is important for this person to be a happy person? What makes you happy? You have to define it for yourself first. All right. So if someone comes to me is like, you know, I feel like I'm in the wrong body. I feel like I'm this way, and I have clients like that. Right. I have clients
that tell you I am in the wrong body.
I have clients who told me that. I have
They're
clients
confused.
They're not confused. They are trying to figure things out.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So now I also have clients that are in the LGBTQ community. All right. So, but my focus is not on that. It's just a part of them. That's just a part of who they are. All right. My thing is to look at the person on a whole and really see, okay, if you are depressed, what causes your depression? If you are anxious, what causes you the anxiety?
What about if they tell you that my anxiety is because I was raped when I was 5 years old or 8 years old?
Then that's a deeper issue.
And that's why I'm confused about my sexual orientation.
Then we have to come back, because being raped creates some feelings, some strong feelings. Okay? So we have to help that person deal with those feelings. Because that's a traumatic experience. That's a trauma. All right? So we have to address that trauma. We have to first start talking about the trauma. But my job is not to tell you that what you're feeling is wrong, or what you're feeling is this or this way. I'm trying to orient them in a way that I feel proper or not proper. Ethically, I cannot do that.
I see.
All right. So I have to let the person decide what it is that they want for their own lives.
Okay.
All right.
Now, one flag can come up during your, interviewing with somebody and tells you, you know what, I'm just here, I'm just crying, I'm tired. If something is not done right now, I'll kill myself, or hint you on that.
Well,
what would you do?
Well, if a person really, I have to assess the level of, they call it suicidal ideation. Right? So if a client comes to me and tell me that he's tired and really close to that, I'm going to ask him if he has a plan.
A plan? Okay.
And usually, if a person has a plan, I can describe it very clearly. What I would do is I have to report it.
Report it?
Yes, I do. I call 911.
Oh.
All right.
So it's part of your job.
Yeah, just because I have to make sure that this person is safe. I have to make sure that this person doesn't cause harm to other people and themselves as well.
Okay.
So there are services at the hospital in emergency that take care of those extreme cases, and I have to report it. So either I talk to the parents and tell, if it's a child or a friend or husband, I tell the person that they came with that, hey, you know what? Go, I write a letter and I go to the hospital, go to the emergency, let them know that this person is trying to kill himself and and he had, the most important is the plan. If you have a plan, I have to report
If that patient says, I have a plan to kill myself, that's when you report them.
You have a plan. Okay. What is the plan? If you can describe it very clearly. But if you just say that I have a plan, to me, it's already a red flag. If you came by yourself, I'm like, I stopped the therapy right there. I was like, hey, you know what? Because you told me that, I have to call the police, and this is the procedure that we have to go through. I have to do this, I have to report that, and I also have to call 911 to take you to the hospital, because that's very serious. But I have a conversation with my parents, because I just don't run to the phone and call. No. I tell the client, hey, you know, this is what you just said, and that's very scary. Okay, but because you said that, and you also said that you have a plan, I'm mandated to report it. But that's the procedure. I'm not reporting you to go to jail.
I see.
But just so that you can
can get help.
You can get better help and stronger help.
And it can
faster.
Stop that plane.
Exactly. So they can work with you as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And sometimes those people might need some medication, being internalized, like interned into a special facility for those specific cases.
Gotcha.
And I have to make sure that happen for them.
Now, for folks who are underage, as a therapist, do you have to have a session, an interview with their parents sitting by, because they're actually underage?
No. If they're underage, they are my client.
Okay.
I have to let the parent know how the therapy is going. But whatever happened between the client and I, stay between us.
Okay.
So if the client tells me that I do not want certain part of the therapy to be told to my parent, I can't say anything.
You will keep confidential.
It's confidential.
Gotcha.
All right. So, but I have to advise, if the parents are there, they are the guardian, I have to let them know or tell them about how things are going, give them an update and stuff. And if they are a point of concern, there's a way to talk to them. But I cannot divulge what the client tells me that they do not want to. And I have to support them on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are having a very great conversation here, and we, at the end of this conversation, I would like to thank you, Yves Mukanya, for coming from all the way from New England, from the city of Rhode Island, city of Providence, Rhode Island, here in Texas, to talk to us about this. And so I wanted just for you to give us a conclusive word about your profession, or the profession of a lot of therapists out there. What should the public that is following us right now expect from a therapist, and what should they bring to the therapist if they need any help? Because to everything that I hear from you, they are the center of their decisions. You are just accompanying them, helping them with, you know, the thought process, but they are the number one. What should they expect from a therapist, and what would you recommend them to have?
You're looking for a therapist. People think that when you go to therapy, it's going to be like a magic wand, and it's going to change you into, you know, this person who's going to be a lot. No,
a better person.
You can be that, all right, but you have to, first of all, you have to be willing to address the problem, the real problem.
Yes.
That's the first. Second, you have to get to a point where you are open. You have to be open to your therapist about what's really bothering you and be honest about it. And the other thing is willing to do the work.
Okay.
Right? So if you're not willing to do the work, you're wasting your time, and you're wasting the therapist's time as well. So don't expect a magic wand and something that's going to change. No, it takes work. It takes time.
On both sides.
On both sides. And it takes patience. So if you're willing to be patient, if you're willing to do the work, And if you take that magic wand kind of vision out of your head and say that it's going to take the time that it's going to take, but those are my goals, those are the things that I'm trying to reach, and I'm willing to do the work and spend the time, then yes, those are the clients that usually I see progression. The guys that I don't see progression are the people that just want to try it out. Of course, you can try it, right? And sometimes they recommend trying different therapists and see how the vibe, how you feel about it. Because I'm not relate to someone differently. I'm not gonna match with anybody that come to my door.
That's right.
Some people gonna resonate with me. Yeah. Some people will not.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it, and I'm okay with it. So the client also have to understand that not the first time might not be the right one. You might take a few try until you find the person that actually work with you or understand you or relate to you the best. So it takes time.
Ladies and gentlemen, to reach out to them, like I said, they have a different way of doing therapy and helping people. They have walk-ins. If you happen to be in the town where he lives, there's walk-ins. You can also have a consultation via telephone. You can have a consultation via Zoom. I don't know if I exhausted all the means.
Yeah, we can do Zoom consultation. We can. I usually prefer the in-person, but with the way technology is going right now, it's Zoom and you can touch a lot of people that way.
There you go. So you have the answer. For now, you can reach them out on Instagram, yo_neighborhood_therapist. Tonight we were with Yves Mukanya, coming from Providence, Rhode Island. It's a pleasure, sir, to have you in our studio. Did you like the stage?
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice. Nicely done.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like really to help us in the endeavor we're doing, please share our video, like our video, and subscribe to our channel. You also have us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok. Do not forget to actually refer us to your friends. And if you know anybody who has any great subject matter that he can bring to the knowledge of everybody out there, my audience, please contact our office, contact our studio here, Biso Production in Euless, Texas. My name is Franklin Katunda, running this thing for RGTV, and we are here on Think About It.